If you're taking the LSAT in November, it is not too late to apply to law school this cycle. Today, I'll share with you how you can leverage the law school application timeline and the recent LSAT changes to get a top LSAT score if you're taking the LSAT in November and beyond. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now, back when I applied to law school, November might have been considered a little bit late. That is no longer the case, in part because the LSAT timeline has shifted, and the LSAT timeline changes have in turn shifted the entire nature of the law school admissions timeline. The LSAT used to be offered only 4 times per year: February, June, September or October, and December. However, when LSAC changed the LSAT format from being on paper to being on a tablet temporarily prior to the pandemic, they also doubled the number of LSAT administrations to be 8 times per year rather than the previous 4. This in turn had a consequence, leading more students to retake the LSAT because there were more opportunities to retake the LSAT, and applicants became increasingly aware of the fact that law schools no longer average multiple LSAT scores, but rather they only take the highest score. So what this meant is that if you were initially aiming to take the LSAT in September or October, you might think to yourself, I don't have to wait until December to retake it. I could take it again in, say, November and still apply to law school this calendar year. Now, the great news for anyone taking the November LSAT is that scores come back the day before Thanksgiving. This means that if you get your application essays done during the couple of weeks between the LSAT test date and the LSAT score release, you can submit your applications the very same day and enjoy a long weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, with your applications already in. You can enjoy your winter break if you're still in college. You can enjoy the holidays. And if you are applying to law school this calendar year to start law school next year, you are perfectly early in the cycle. In fact, the January LSAT is not too late. Neither is the February LSAT. And just as law schools will not care about whether you retake the LSAT or not, they also don't care exactly when you apply to law school. Of course, all else being equal, it's better to apply earlier rather than later. But the thing is, all else is rarely equal, because if you could get a score increase by applying a month or two later, it is well worth the wait. Law schools have no incentive to care about when you apply to law school because they are not evaluated based on that metric, just as they have no incentive to care about whether you took the LSAT with logic games or without logic games. It's all the same to them. Speaking of which, the fact that logic games are no longer on the test is a massive opportunity for you because there's less material for you to study. LSAC removed the logic game section after the June LSAT and replaced it with a second scored logical reasoning section. This means there's less material for you to study, and any gains you make in your understanding of logical reasoning will be doubled across the two sections. So you may want to spend roughly 2/3 of your LSAT prep time on logical reasoning, since it is now 2/3 of the test. And although there are roughly 15 different types of logical reasoning questions, depending on how you count them, not all logical reasoning question types are as common as others. The 3 most common types are necessary assumption, inference, and flaw. And if you study those types, you master those types, you drill those types, you will have picked up a lot of the low-hanging fruit. When I first meet a new student, a refugee from a bigger LSAT prep company, I often discover that they don't know the difference between necessary assumption questions and sufficient assumption questions. And so if I can correct that misconception, I can typically get them a pretty quick and significant score boost. This is just one of the things that we cover with students at LSAT Unplugged, whether it's through our live online classes, on-demand video courses, small group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. You can check out the links below to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And so when we create personalized day-by-day study plans for all of our students, we walk them through the most common question types to begin with, make sure you've mastered those types before moving on to the less common types, and finally, the rare ones that only show up maybe once or twice per exam. We're not just drilling questions by type, though. We also want you to move on to doing individual timed sections and full-length practice tests before the big day. And if you are taking the LSAT in November, you've got plenty of time to do at least 10 full-length practice tests before the big day, so that test day itself will feel like just another run-through. And of course, no more logic games on the test, double logical reasoning. You may potentially have 3 logical reasoning sections on your exam because your unscored experimental section could be a logical reasoning section. In fact, it's more likely than not to, since logical reasoning is now 2/3 of the test. LSAC has to test out double the number of logical reasoning questions as they do reading comp. So make sure you consider this as part of your LSAT prep plan. And again, if you need any help, feel free to reach out. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.